What happens when the harassment you experience at work doesn't take place at work? Well, that's exactly what happened to Dr. Linda Okanowski, an employee who complained about harassment even though it didn't take place at work. By the end of this video, you will understand that harassment doesn't have to happen at work to be considered harassment. Also, how offsite behavior, including anonymous social media posts, can create a hostile work environment and the real life consequences that occur when those in leadership fail to act or act too late. Hi, I'm Harlow Reed, employment lawyer, HR consultant, and creator of the HR Insider. And on this channel, I do more than give my legal opinion. I talk about real legal cases to show how the law might apply to your situation. Okay, so if you've watched any videos on this channel, chances are you have come across one about harassment. It is an important topic. There's a lot of confusion about what counts as harassment, and sometimes employees don't know when to draw the line. There can be a lot of gray area. And so the case we're talking about today kind of highlights when that gray area happens and what you should do. If you want to know more about those gray lines, I've got a whole playlist dedicated to workplace harassment, what it looks like, how to handle it, and what your rights are. So if you want to learn more, definitely check it out. A lot of people assume that once you step outside of the office or outside of your regular workplace, regardless of where that is, especially when employees are in a more relaxed setting, the assumption is that those workplace boundaries can be left behind. But the truth is, harassment that happens outside of work can still create a hostile work environment. And in some cases, it can still be the employer's responsibility to address it. And the case today isn't just about one person's experience. It really is a reminder that employers can be held accountable even when harassment crosses the walls of the workplace. So let's talk about it. The content on this channel is for informational purposes only and shouldn't be taken as legal advice. Always consult a qualified attorney or HR professional for guidance on your specific situation. And hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. This case begins with Dr. Lindsay Okonowski, who started working as a staff psychologist at the Federal Correction Complex in Lompoc, also known as the prison, back in 2018. On February 16th, 2020, Dr. Lindsay Okonowski was scrolling through her personal Instagram account when she came across a page called 8 and Hit the Gate. The page regularly posted memes about the Federal Correction Complex where Dr. Okonowski worked. Some made jokes about the workplace, and others included sexual references to women. One post, for example, showed a man choking a woman with the caption, "When an inmate puts dope in their mouth and tries to swallow." What made it even more concerning, many of the memes were liked and commented on by other employees at the Federal Correction Complex. At first, no one knew who was behind the account, but eventually the truth came out. The page filled with sexist memes and inappropriate jokes about prison staff was run by none other than Stephen Hellman, a lieutenant at the Federal Correction Complex, a person in a position of authority, posting anonymous, degrading content about his own coworkers. And I'm not just talking about the occasional inappropriate word here or there. This page was filled with sexist and vulgar posts, the kind that crossed every line you can imagine. The Instagram page also included 3 derogatory memes aimed directly at Dr. Lindsay Okonowski. The day after she discovered the account, Dr. Okonowski reported it to several people in positions of authority at the prison. She notified her immediate supervisor, Dr. Carl Clegg, as well as the drug abuse program coordinator, Dr. Ann Clemmer, and Dr. Linda Okonowski even showed some of the posts to Dr. Ann Clemmer and explained that the content was inappropriate and at times it was clearly targeted at her. And on February 18th, 2020, Dr. Lindsay Okonowski met with the acting warden at the Federal Correction Complex in Lompoc named James Engelman to formally raise concerns she had about the Instagram page. Dr. Okonowski told the warden, James Engelman, that the content of the page was inappropriate, it was sexist, and it was targeting specific departments. She also warned that the page could become a serious public relations issue for the prison. That same day, Warden James Engelman asked Special Agent Victor Gonzalez to open an investigation. Meanwhile, Dr. Lindsay Okanowski was reassigned from the medium facility to the low facility. Dr. Okanowski believes someone working in the special housing unit might be behind the posts, and the move was meant to give her some distance from that environment, so she was in agreement with the transfer. Now, this was an interesting turn of events because later that same day, right after she met with the warden, Dr. Lindsay Okanowski saw a meme on the Instagram page that showed former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi ripping up former President Trump's State of the Union address, and the post included the captions, "When you get butt hurt by memes," and "Tomorrow's forecast, hot enough to melt a snowflake," with the hashtag, "You can take a DICK, but not a joke." And Dr. Lindsay Okanowski felt that the meme was posted in response to the complaints she had made just hours earlier. Dr. Lindsay then emailed the meme she found on Instagram to the warden, James Engelman, on February 19th, 2020. Warden Engelman, then forwarded the meme to the special investigator, Agent Victor Gonzalez, and directed him to forward Dr. Lindsay's complaints to the Bureau of Prisons Office of Internal Affairs. On March 27th, 2020, Dr. Okanowski submitted another complaint, this time about new posts that had gone up on the Instagram page. One of the posts mocked female staff, suggesting that when women say, "Call me if you need anything," male staffers actually hear it as, "Do you have anywhere I can put my boner?" And that same day, yet another meme was found on Instagram by Dr. Okanowski. And this one showed the front entrance sign for the U.S. Penitentiary in Big Sandy, Kentucky. The caption underneath the meme said, "One staff member that's a giant CUNT loves inmates and relentlessly tells on staff." The words Big Sandy were underlined in red, and the post included a crude comment about female anatomy. Dr. Okanowski immediately forwarded the post to Warden Engelman by email, and he passed it along to Special Investigator Agent Gonzalez. And just a few days later, Dr. Okanowski did it again. She submitted another formal complaint, specifically about what had become known as the penitentiary meme. Now, in early April 2020, things were changing at the prison. Barbara Van Blackensee had stepped in as the new warden of the Federal Correction Complex in Lompoc. And not long after she took over, the acting warden, James Engelman, he brought her up to speed on Dr. Lindsay, her complaints, and the Instagram page and the ongoing investigation. And after hearing all of this, Wharton von Blackensee, he pulled together a 6-member threat assessment team on April 13th, 2020. They were known as TAT, short for Threat Assessment Team, and they reviewed Dr. Lindsay Okanowski's complaint, and they were asked to look into her concerns about a hostile work environment and the inappropriate use of social media, which Dr. Lindsay had been very vocal about how it violated prison policy. And that same day, Tat sat down with Dr. Okanowski to hear her out. During the meeting, they asked her to avoid looking at the Instagram page, but they told her to report it if anything else happened. And 2 days after that, Tat met with Stephen Hellman. And Stephen did not try to hide anything. He admitted openly that the Instagram page was his and that he was the only one behind the post. But he claimed that none of the memes were directed at Dr. Okanowski. On April 16th, the TAT issued a report, and in it, they said that Stephen Hellman's posts on Instagram, particularly the ones that clearly seemed aimed at Dr. Okanowski, met the definition of bullying under the Bureau of Prisons anti harassment policy. They also noted that his denial was not credible. And the TAT team did not stop there. They also made several recommendations, including referring Hellman to the Office of Internal Affairs, sending him to the Employee Assistance Program, and issuing a formal cease and desist letter regarding his social media activity. And even though the threat assessment team was convened and their recommendations were followed, Stephen Hellman continued posting sexist and offensive memes on Instagram. One of his later posts even targeted the prison's psychology services unit where Dr. Okanowski worked. The Instagram page remained active, it was not taken down until sometime after May 12th, 2020. That's when it was finally taken down. And on September 22nd, 2021, Dr. Okanowski filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California against Merrick Garland. She later resigned from the Bureau of Prisons on July 6th, 2022. Now, if you're wondering who is Merrick Garland, how did he come in the picture? Well, the case is called Okanowski v. Garland, but Merrick Garland didn't work at the prison and he wasn't involved in any of this directly. Here's why his name is on the case. At the time when this case was filed by Dr. Okanowski, Merrick Garland was the Attorney General for the United States, and that means he was the head of the U.S. Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice actually oversees the Federal Bureau of Prisons, which runs facilities like the one where Dr. Okanowski worked. So, when a federal employee sues under Title VII for workplace discrimination or harassment, the law requires that the lawsuit be filed against the head of the agency, in this case, the Attorney General. Now, this doesn't mean that Garland had anything to do with what happened at the prison. It just means he's the official representative of the department that's being sued. A little bit of legal trivia for you there. Okay, back to the case. In its defense, the government, through Attorney General Merrick Garland, tried to get the case dismissed. They basically argued that the harassment didn't happen at work, therefore, it didn't apply. There was no valid claim because if workplace harassment doesn't happen at work, it couldn't be harassment. And at first, that argument worked. The lower court agreed that workplace harassment that doesn't happen at work can't be harassment. And so they dismissed the case. But Dr. Lindsay Okanowski didn't stop there. She appealed the ruling by the lower court, and the Court of Appeals, they sided with her. And the Court of Appeals made it clear harassment doesn't have to happen inside the four walls of the workplace to be real. If offsite behavior affects your work environment, especially when it's coming from a coworker, it can still be harassment, and employers still have a duty to act. I can only imagine how humiliating this must have been for Dr. Okanowski, knowing that this was happening at work, that everyone at work saw it, they were talking about it, and still nothing was done. She filed a complaint, multiple complaints, and almost immediately the Instagram page fired back, which tells me leadership knew what was going on and for whatever reason chose not to act decisively to make it stop immediately when it surfaced. This case really highlights that gray area around what counts as harassment, especially when it happens off site or anonymously. Because let's be clear, if you are posting inappropriate or offensive comments about your coworkers, even anonymously, it can be traced back to you. You are opening yourself up to serious consequences. The Bureau of Prisons let Stephen Hellman's behavior go on far too long, and I can't help but think that his long term status as a government employee had something to do with that hesitancy. I actually covered this issue, the weight and protection that often comes with federal employment, in another video on this channel called Federal Layoffs and What Every Government Employee Should Know. If you want to know more about federal workers and how job security plays into situations like this, that's a good one to check out. So if you're an employee, remember this: harassment doesn't have to happen at work to affect your work. And you do have the right to speak up, even if the behavior happens off the clock. And if you are a small employer, don't make the mistake of ignoring conduct just because it happens outside the building. If it impacts the workplace, it is your responsibility to take it seriously and to act. Thanks for watching today. I'll see you in the next video.